Hello and welcome to one of the most widely anticipated events of the global academic calendar, the all-new World University Rankings from Times Higher Education magazine. I'm Mishal Hussain, and in a moment I'll be revealing the world's top 10 academic institutions for 2012-13. So why do these rankings matter? Well, increasingly they influence the choices that both students and academics make. Researchers use them to look for new global collaborations. Often, they're also built into universities' strategic plans. And beyond the academic walls, the rankings play a vital role at government level across the world, with universities helping to drive economic growth through knowledge, innovation and skills. In a moment, I'll be speaking to Phil Beattie, editor of the rankings, who'll reveal some of this year's highlights. But first, let's look at that all-important top 10. And in 10th place this year, it's the University of Chicago. In 9th, the University of California, Berkeley. Imperial College in London takes 8th, just behind the University of Cambridge in 7th and Princeton in 6th. Into the top 5 now, with MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, at 5. And now, one of the big surprises of 2012-13, Harvard, for so long at the top of the rankings, is down to 4th. It's been overtaken this year by the University of Oxford and by Stanford University, which are joint 2nd. And the world's #1 university for 2012-13? It's Caltech, the California Institute of Technology. Well, with me now is Phil Beattie, who edits Times Higher Education's rankings. Phil, so Caltech are in that #1 position again, but what's going on with Harvard dropping down to 4th?
Well, it's very, very tight at the top. It's like elite athletes, you know, very small differences can make a difference between a gold and a silver. Caltech is fantastic across the board. It's small, it's focused, and that's its great strength. With Harvard, it's lost a bit of ground on international indicators. Its international outlook scores have dropped a little bit compared to competitors. But in particular, Oxford's leapfrogged it because it's reported a far higher research income.
And beyond the top 10, what is the bigger picture across the spectrum?
I think the story of the rankings actually is the shift of power from the West to the East. The US, the UK have always dominated these rankings, and they still do in terms of numbers. But what we're seeing is tremendous upward movement from the leading universities in China, in Korea, in Hong Kong, Singapore. And actually the US institutions have, as a whole, taken quite a substantial hit, and so have the UK and so have Canada's.
So the top 10 could look different in a few years' time?
I think the trend is definitely towards Asia continuing to rise. They're putting a lot of money into their universities there. The UK is facing austerity measures. The US have had some real issues with austerity in their great public funded institutions. So I think there's no doubt we're going to see a continuing trend of Asia rising, and the Western elites, the old guard, can really not afford to rest on their laurels.
But what about the developing world and the countries that really can't afford to invest in higher education in the same way?
It does require a huge investment to build a world-class university. They need huge resources. But we are seeing in this ranking actually the rise of some of the developing nations. Brazil's top university, Sao Paulo, it's risen 20 places. We've seen the Indian universities, we have 3 of them just bubbling under the surface, close to the top 200. So we're seeing some real change.
Finally, your rankings are closely watched all around the world every year. How reassured can people be that the system you use is really, really credible?
Well, we've got data provided by Thomson Reuters. They have an incredible wealth of information. We've analysed 50 million research citations, 5 million, 6 million research papers, 100,000 data points on universities. We've got an incredible foundation. And what we've done is we've consulted very widely to get an understanding from the university community about which indicators they really value. And we use 13 different indicators across the whole spectrum of a university's activity: research, knowledge transfer, international outlook, and uniquely among these sort of tables, we look at teaching as well.
Phil Beattie, thank you. There's much more information on the website, and if you want to explore the data in more detail, you can download the free app.